Good morning. What a beautiful day it is. Glad to be here with you. As my mug tells you, I'm blessed today. I titled today's thoughts The Greatest Expectation Breaker Ever. I was in some training in December, some very technical training for what I do vocationally, and one of the speakers said, "This is an expectation breaker." And he pointed it out on the chart, and it just really uh, made a point in my thoughts about life that there are things called expectations and there are things called expectation breakers. Um, an expectation breaker is when your expectations are disrupted by an extreme reality. You all have had them. I've had my life littered with expectation breakers. There's been deaths, there's been disabilities, there's been sicknesses, all kinds of things that were expectation breakers. Not everything's an expectation breaker. Like if you believe Psalm 90:10 and that life is maybe 70 or 80 years, if something happens to you after your 70 or 80th year, it's not that outrageous of an expectation breaker. But if something happens to your 31-year-old sister-in-law, that's an expectation breaker. And that specific one changed my life. It caused me to think differently, caused me to look at life differently. But when you have an expectation breaker, it gets your emotions going, and then sometimes your thoughts don't go right. But on the other hand, sometimes when you have an extreme expectation breaker, it may cause you to stop, sit down, and think about what just happened. And that's what happened with Donna's passing. It caused some serious contemplation for me. And the lasting effect on my life is that I've got a smile on my face today. But let's talk about the expectation breakers this weekend. Um, there is a thing, and you can Google this, called the Messianic Miracles. The guy that I read through this a little bit about is a guy named Arnold Fruchtenbaum, and I'm not going to spell it for you. You just have to Google Messianic Miracles. There were three Messianic miracles that only the Messiah could do these three miracles, and the Pharisee leadership was teaching that these were Messianic miracles. The first one was that you heal a Jewish leper. And Jesus did that in Mark 1:40 through 45. It had never been done since the law was created. There had been lepers healed, but none that were the Jewish lepers. And so that the healing of the Jewish leper, that was like a light should have gone off to change the expectations of the Pharisee leadership that maybe this is Messiah. Then the second is casting out a demon from a mute person, a dumb demon. And that took place in Mark 3. I can't read my notes there, 14 through 30 maybe. Mark 3, you'll see that there, but that was when Jesus made the mute demon tell him his name, and he cast him out. And then the third one was a healing of a man born blind. And many of you might have heard that story where that guy, when the leadership was asking, how did this happen? Is this man, this or that? And he said, I don't know. All I know is blind. I was blind, but now I see. That's my story about Jesus. I was blind spiritually, but now I see. But then there was even another one that, Jesus' friends, Martha and Mary, they were close friends, and Lazarus, and then Lazarus got sick, and Jesus delayed past the third day. Did you ever notice that? So that they said to him that Lazarus's body is probably stinking now, which probably it was, but Jesus got there and raised Lazarus from the dead. And all those miracles, they weren't enough. They weren't enough for the Pharisees, the leadership. They wouldn't believe that he was Messiah. And so even though he uh, disrupted their expectations, they wouldn't change the way they thought. They actually got more emotional. They were ready to kill him because of those messianic miracles. But then, then we spring forward to the crucifixion of Jesus, and you had two groups of people that had expectations. One was just the leadership of the Jewish nation that they wanted Jesus killed, and so the crucifixion was that time so they could have him killed. The second group was all those people that were following him. Those young disciples, those teenage disciples, Peter and Paul, and all the expectations that maybe this rabbi is the real one and he's paying attention to us, and now he's dying. Man, what an expectation breaker for those folks. But then came the third day, right? Like, and 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 there was doubting Thomas. I'm not going to believe it until I can put my finger in the holes of his hand. And so then with the resurrection, there were two different groups of expectation breakers. The Jewish leaders now really had their expectations broken because they thought he was dead and he's alive. And so then they had to bribe the guard to lie. Talk about a conspiracy theory. You can read that in the Bible. They bribed the guard to lie and say that his followers came and stole his body. And then there were the Jesus followers. They couldn't believe it. Like doubting Thomas, they couldn't believe what happened, but then they believed. That's creepy. Google's talking to me over there on my phone. They couldn't believe him. And so the followers then, they had a radical expectation breaker. If you read some of the histories of his disciples, they died telling you and me and people that would lead up to telling you and me about the resurrection of Jesus. And so they either died for a lie or they saw the resurrection. They saw Jesus ascending to high. They saw Jesus do the miracles. So either they're just completely crazy or this historical event 2,000 years ago radically changed their expectations. And that's what I'd throw out there to you is what Paul said. If the resurrection didn't happen, we, those of us who believe it did, are the most to be pitied. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure it did. There's plenty of historical records that you can find that the resurrection happened. And so that's what you have to decide today. Did it or didn't it? As for me, it did, and that's why I can smile today. And so don't let your expectations get set on things down here because you'll get all worked up, but set them on the things above. Have a great day.